On today's video, I'm going to answer the self-proposed question, does the Mazda MX5 RF make for a good Grand Tourer? To answer this question, we're going to do a weekend away and evaluate the car on the 4 categories I believe a car needs to excel in to be considered a good Grand Tourer. The route will see us leave our home in Western Sydney, head out to Parks to check out a dish, no, not that dish, this one, and then come back via Orange and a reasonably famous piece of road that goes up a hill. The 4 categories that we're going to evaluate the RF on are number 1, looks, number 2, performance, number 3, storage, and most importantly, comfort. Starting off with the looks, it doesn't matter what angle or what location you look at the RF, it just looks stunning. Its curvy rear end, classic roadster profile, and aggressive front end means that it looks unreal whether the roof's up, down, half up, half down, it doesn't matter. Mazda nailed the design on this car. The good news continues as you move on the inside of the RF. The colour combination that Mazda have used in this car complements each other really well. The gauge cluster is clear and concise, all the touch points are really well appointed, everything just feels classy. Point number 2, performance. We're not talking crazy dyno numbers or quarter mile figures or anything silly like that. However, on a long road trip, you want to have a car that is able to deal with undulations and overtaking manoeuvres without fuss. You want to be able to feel that you can tackle hills and the car isn't struggling. Now, the Mazda MX-5 is known for its lack of power. However, it honestly hasn't been an issue on this trip. Mechanical sympathy does dictate that you change down to 5th or 4th for the bigger hills or maybe a quick overtake. And speaking of which, there is no such thing as a quick overtake. You do need to plan and you do need room. Almost contradictory to this is economy. You need to have a car that doesn't need to be filled up every 50 to 100 kilometres. Doesn't matter how good looking it is, how powerful it is, if you're stopping all the time, there's no point. Point number 3, storage. This is pretty self-explanatory. However, if you're going to try and do a weekend away or longer, you're going to need to be able to take more than just a spare t-shirt. Unfortunately, this is probably the MX-5's biggest weakness. As we have a look in the boot, we're spending 2 nights away. So that means that Liz has packed 2 outfits, 2 emergency outfits, 2 pairs of shoes, a jacket, a bigger jacket if it gets really cold, and I've packed my camera bag and a spare pair of undies just in case. As you can see, the boot is basically full. Moving inside the RF, there isn't a wealth of storage options available to you. Between the passenger and driver's seat we have this little cubby which is big enough just to fit the key really. You can fit an iPhone 6 underneath the climate controls. Then between the driver and passenger you have this cubby which is decently sized, however it would be better if it was sectioned off because you end up just throwing stuff in there and forgetting what is even in there. There is a secret compartment behind the driver's seat, although I'm not really sure what you'd put in here because it sort of feels like it would become the Bermuda Triangle of the RF. Whatever you put in there is never coming back. Now on to the 4th and most important point, comfort. As I said at the beginning of the video, this is all about seeing how the RF handles Grand Tourer duties. We already know that it's a great daily driver, a great track toy, and it smashes twisty back roads. However, how does it stack up when it's doing Grand Tourer duties? Throughout this weekend, we've spent hours at a time behind the wheel, and uncharacteristically we've had to deal with snow. So it was mid-20s earlier this weekend, and here we've had to deal with snow, which was actually a really good test for the RF and how it would handle such harsh conditions. Thanks to the hard roof, wind noise has been at a minimum, and we haven't felt any of the harsh elements coming through to the cabin. Now, keep in mind that the RF has undergone Mazda's Gram strategy, so sound deadening is sparse, some of the panels are a bit thinner than you might expect, so you do receive a bit more driveline noise through to the cabin than another car. Personally, I don't find that to be too much of an issue on the highway. If you do hit coarse roads, there is a bit of tyre oil that comes through. When it is raining, you do hear the water splashing up against the underside of the car, so if you're someone that needs a perfectly quiet cabin, that could potentially be an issue. However, if you've bought the MX-5 knowing that it's undergone this Gram strategy, you honestly won't have an issue at all with any kind of NVH. Suspension wise, obviously on a highway, the MX-5 is perfect. Even on some of the more harsher roads, it deals with the bumps really nicely and you do feel comfortable. One area that I feel that the MX-5 falls down in is space. Now, I know I said that it's a small car, so you should expect that. However, after say 2.5 hours behind the wheel, you kind of want to stretch your legs out, move them around. Whereas in the RF, you don't have that option. Because the transmission tunnel takes up so much floor space, your left leg is basically committed to being stretched out and your right leg can't move around all that much. As a passenger, because this has the 9-speaker Bose system,
you do have a subwoofer in the footwell, which means you are robbed of a little bit of leg room. In conclusion, do I think that the Mazda MX5 RF GT makes for a good Grand Tourer? Well, no. It's not to say that I haven't had a brilliant time taking it away for the weekend. As a daily driver, as a track toy, on a twisty back road, the car punches well above its weight, and it does an admirable job here for Grand Touring duties. However, what car of this size is actually considered a Grand Tourer that isn't a Porsche? So it's doing its best to get into really highly acclaimed company. However, it just doesn't quite tick the boxes that I believe are required to be considered a Grand Tourer. Thank you for watching this video. If you've liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below of what you agree with or more than likely disagree with. And let me know what you want to see on this channel. And if you're a car manufacturer or you own a dealership and you'd like me to review a car, please hit me up. I'd be more than happy to work with you. I'll see you in the next video.